Welcome to the deep dive. This one is, it's all about you and those cybersecurity articles you sent over. A mix of breaking news and industry trends. Even a podcast recommendation that I think you'll really like. Ready for a sneak peek?
Let's do it.
Okay, we've got a new ransomware tactic going after cloud storage in a way I haven't seen before. A whole debate on whether AI-powered patching is a lifesaver or a disaster waiting to happen. And a story about abandoned startup accounts that might just keep you up at night. Luckily, I have our expert here to help us break it all down, see what really matters.
I'm happy to be here.
So let's start with this ransomware campaign hitting Amazon S3 buckets. What's got me concerned is they're not just encrypting files. They're using the victim's own keys to do it.
Yeah, it really flips the script on what we think of as secure. You choose to encrypt your sensitive data in S3 with your own keys through the system called SSCC, server-side encryption with customer-provided keys, thinking it's the safest way to go, right? Well, attackers have figured out how to exploit that very system. They compromise your credentials to gain access, then use your keys to lock you out of your own data. It's like having the keys to your house stolen and then the thief changes the locks while you're out.
And the Halcyon Rise team who uncovered this is saying there's no way to get that data back without paying the ransom. It's a chilling thought. It's like a digital kidnapping where the ransom isn't just about money. It's about potentially crippling an entire business. So this isn't about some vulnerability in AWS itself, right?
Right. This attack preys on something even more fundamental: compromised credentials. It's a huge reminder that security is only as strong as your weakest link, and many times that weakness comes down to us, the humans.
Makes you wonder, even with all the technological advancements, are we still our own worst enemy when it comes to security?
It's certainly something to think about. And if we look at this ransomware tactic in the bigger picture, it's a huge evolution. It's not just about encrypting files on your computer anymore. It's about targeting your most critical data wherever it lives.
You mentioned compromised credentials. So how does someone actually become a victim of this attack?
That's where things get a bit technical. Remember that SSCC system I mentioned?
Yes.
It lets you manage your own encryption keys, but it also requires you to configure access permissions very carefully. Attackers are likely targeting accounts where those permissions are misconfigured, maybe too many people have access, or the access level is set too high. They essentially gain the ability to use those keys without the proper authorization, effectively locking the real owner out.
So it's not just about having strong passwords and multi-factor authentication. It's also about properly managing access controls and making sure only the right people have the right level of access to sensitive data. Given this new threat, how would you, as someone in cybersecurity, adapt your cloud security strategy? It's definitely something to ponder. Now let's switch gears for a minute and talk about artificial intelligence, specifically AI-powered patching. Is this the wave of the future for managing vulnerabilities, or are we opening Pandora's box?
Well, it's a double-edged sword. On one hand, imagine a system that finds and fixes vulnerabilities before anyone can exploit them. Sounds pretty amazing. But then you have situations like the recent Snyk allegations.
Right, those were troubling. Remind me what happened there again.
Snyk, a security company, was accused of potentially using malicious packages uploaded to the NPM repository to target an AI code editor company called Cursor. Security researcher Paul McCarty found these packages, uploaded by a user called SN4K3C, which seemed designed specifically to go after Cursor.
Someone was potentially using open source code as a weapon against an AI company.
That's the concern. We still don't know all the details, but it does raise a lot of questions about what happens when AI development relies on open source code. It also makes you think about AI-powered patching and whether it could fall victim to the same kind of manipulation.
That's a scary thought. So how do we balance the benefits of AI in cybersecurity with the need to keep things secure and under control?
That's the million-dollar question. We need to treat AI-powered solutions just like any critical software. We have to have strong vetting processes in place, make sure we're monitoring how these systems work, and not assume that just because something is open source, it's automatically safe to use.
Speaking of the bigger picture, the World Economic Forum just came out with their Global Cybersecurity Outlook for 2025 and paints a pretty complex picture. What stood out to you?
The key takeaway for me was the need for a security-first mindset. The report talks about how much more complex cyberspace is becoming. We've got geopolitical uncertainty, the gap between the cyber haves and have-nots is widening, and the threats themselves are getting more and more sophisticated.
It's like trying to navigate a maze that's constantly shifting, and the stakes are getting higher every time you take a wrong turn. So how do we even begin to find our way?
The report actually points to something you're in a great position to help with: They're stressing that the old siloed approach to cybersecurity just isn't going to cut it anymore. We need organizations, governments, even individuals to work together, share information, share best practices. We can't afford to keep operating in isolation.
This brings up a critical point from the WEF report. The traditional siloed approach to cybersecurity is failing. It's like trying to fight a global pandemic by having each country deal with it on their own. You, as someone actively engaged in the cybersecurity space, are in a unique position to foster the collaboration this report calls for. What steps can you take within your organization or network to break down these silos?
That's a great question to consider. And if we bring this back to the threats we've been discussing, the ransomware attack on S3 and those potential risks of AI-powered patching, these aren't just isolated incidents, they're symptoms of a larger trend. The cyber threat landscape is changing.
It's almost like we're playing a high-stakes game of chess. But the rules are constantly changing, and the stakes are getting higher with every move. We need to be agile, adaptable, and constantly learning. Speaking of which, there's a white paper from Deloitte and Google Cloud on the future of the SOC, the Security Operations Center. That really resonated with me. They talk about how SOCs need to modernize to keep up with the threats. What do you think?
It's a fascinating look at how things need to change. They focus on three key areas: migrating to the cloud, adopting MDR, which is managed detection and response, and getting in sync with DevOps.
So it's not just about the tech. It's about the people and how they work together. We need to create a culture of collaboration and agility. It sounds like a pretty significant shift from the traditional approach a lot of organizations still have. It's moving from simply reacting to threats to becoming more proactive and data-driven.
Exactly. They also talk about how important it is to have strong log management practices in place, how our methods for detecting and responding to threats need to evolve, and how crucial that collaborative agile culture is. They're making the case that SOCs of the future need to be more tightly integrated with the entire organization, not just operating as a separate entity.
It's all about connecting the dots and understanding the bigger picture, just like we're doing here. But before we go too far down that rabbit hole, I wanted to switch gears and talk about some practical resources that can help you stay ahead of the curve in all of this.
Speaking of staying ahead of the curve, I do have a podcast recommendation that you might find particularly interesting.
Ooh, I'm all ears. Always looking for good recommendations.
Well, if you haven't already, you should definitely check out the ShmooCon 2025 conference videos. They're all up on YouTube for free, and they cover a huge range of security topics.
ShmooCon is legendary. I've heard amazing things about their talks. Which one stood out to you?
There's one in particular that I think you'll find pretty disturbing. It's titled, "Taking Over Millions of Accounts from Abandoned Startups."
Okay, that title alone has me hooked. Tell me more.
The talk focuses on a flaw in Google's sign-in with Google authentication flow. Apparently, this flaw could allow attackers to take over millions of accounts created using that feature, especially accounts linked to startups that have gone out of business.
Wait, so data left behind by abandoned startups could be a major security risk. That's a whole new level of digital ghost hunting.
It really is, and it highlights something we often overlook: how to manage the risks that come with third-party authentication. We tend to trust big platforms like Google, but even they can have vulnerabilities.
It's a reminder that we can't just blindly trust any platform or service. We need to understand the risks involved and take steps to mitigate them. We're not just skimming the surface here. We're going deep, exploring the nuances and asking the tough questions.
It's all about connecting the dots, understanding the broader implications, and empowering you to make informed decisions about your own security posture.
I always recommend Detections Digest as a great way to stay informed. Think of it like a weekly cheat sheet for security pros. It keeps you up to date on all the latest detection rule changes from over 40 different GitHub repositories.
What I like about Detections Digest is its focus on strengthening those detection capabilities for the stealthy persistence and evasion techniques that attackers love to use. It's all about staying one step ahead, right?
Exactly. They've made some impressive enhancements recently, too, like improved SSHD and system process monitoring, and more refined email scam detection rules. What's really fascinating is that they've started incorporating some machine learning algorithms to help identify patterns in attack behavior.
So they're leveraging AI to make their detection rules even more effective.
Exactly, and that's a great example of how AI can be used for good in cybersecurity. So before we wrap things up, let's take a minute to recap some of the key themes we've explored today.
We started with that concerning new ransomware tactic targeting cloud storage, which highlights how much cyber threats are evolving and just how crucial strong credential security is.
Then we explored the potential benefits and risks of AI in cybersecurity. It's a powerful tool, but we have to use it carefully and thoughtfully. The Snyk allegations were a stark reminder that even with good intentions, things can go wrong.
And we talked about the broader trends shaping the cybersecurity landscape, emphasizing the need for a more proactive security-first approach.
We also touched on some valuable resources like Detections Digest and the SchmoCon 2025 conference videos, which can help you stay informed and hone your security skills.
It's a lot to take in, but I hope you're feeling a little more empowered and prepared to face these challenges head-on.
I want to leave you with one final thought-provoking question. If abandoned startup accounts are so vulnerable, what other digital ghosts might be lurking out there just waiting to be exploited? And what responsibility do we have individually and collectively to secure them?
That's an important question to consider. It highlights how interconnected our digital world is and how our actions or inactions can have ripple effects. I think it's a call to action for all of us to be more mindful of the digital footprint we leave behind.
So what does this all mean for you as someone working in the cybersecurity field? It's a reminder that security is a journey, not a destination.
Absolutely. It's about staying informed, adapting to new threats, and always seeking ways to strengthen your security posture.
I encourage you to dive deeper into any of the topics we discussed today, using the resources we mentioned as a starting point. And remember, we're here to support you on that journey. Don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions or if there's anything else we can help you with.
We're always happy to share our knowledge and insights.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. This one was crafted specifically for you based on what you wanted to explore. I hope you found it insightful and engaging.
We hope it's given you some valuable takeaways and maybe even sparked some new ideas.
And if you're hungry for more deep dives into the world of cybersecurity, be sure to check out our archive of past episodes.
We've covered a huge range of topics, everything from threat intelligence and incident response to cloud security and ethical hacking. There's something for everyone.
And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss an episode. We're always adding new content. And we love to hear from our listeners.
Until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, and stay ahead of the curve.
Thanks for diving in with us.